Hello, good afternoon. How are you?
Hey there.
Hey,
How are you, my love?
I'm great. So I'm going to stress El Teddy out more than he's already stressed out.
Great.
One day we're going to get an intro, y'all. I only said that because he's already stressed out and I just thought,
She
what would
would
a
like to
good
add to it.
what would a good sister do in a moment like this? And that would be to add
Add to my stress
stress.
level.
So,
Absolutely add to
yeah.
my stress level.
So other than what I already know you're stressed out about, um how's it going?
It's going. We're having a good time. I thought that in our in today's agenda that we would use today's, you know how we have those days where we break down and unpack something that we think our audience needs to know. So I
Okay.
feel like that micro schools part is something, it's beginning to be a buzzword, and that you're hearing a lot of legislation are surrounding it in a lot of states, specifically red states. And so I thought that today would be a good time for us to unpack it, like we had to with charter schools, like we had to with students with disabilities, and a lot of other things that we've unpacked here. So let's hope that every all of our wonderful subscribers are hitting the like button, sharing the video out, letting the people know we're here. But how's your day going, ma'am? How's your week going?
Well, child, my seniors irritated me. You know how when somebody does something,
Mm-hmm.
like when somebody does something that you're not mad that they did it, you just mad at how they did it.
Mm-hmm.
So they just irritated me. And the thing was, like, I wasn't even mad that they did what they were doing. I was just mad at how they did it. So I have a small senior class. It's only my fourth period class. At the end of the day, it's only six of them, and they were having an assembly in the auditorium, but you had to sign your classes up beforehand. But I didn't sign my classes up because it's IB season, it's AP season, and I was like, I'm not signing us up. We can't miss no class. But
They
I
went
kind of wish
anyway.
I had, right? Because I was
Oh,
grading their papers today and I really didn't need them for anything other than to work on what they were working on. And so I was in another room talking to the other IB teacher about the oral exams and stuff like that. And I start seeing them walking out. And I'm like, I'm sorry, excuse me, what's going on here? Oh, we're going over to the auditorium to go see the dance recital. I said, who gave y'all permission to do this? Well, we were going to leave you a note. I said, I'm sorry, excuse me, you were going to leave me a note.
wait, what?
I said again, right. I said again, my question is, who gave you permission? Now, the reality of the situation is, I really wouldn't have been mad had they gone over there. I just wish, like, it was the way they did it. Like, had they come to me and said, hey, can we go over to the recital? We can get in because all of they're the IB kids, so they're all on student government. They're all like the class presidents and stuff. So like they could have gotten in, and it wouldn't have been a problem. And it was only six of them, but it was just y'all gonna take it upon yourself to march your happy little ass on.
You know, at this time of year, they grown. To them, baby, they already out of school and grown, and you can't tell them
Right.
nothing.
I
Baby, they up
said.
there.
So then it was just pretty much at that point, it was just out of spite that I was like, oh no, we're gonna sit here the whole class period and look at each other
Mm-mm. And you didn't.
while I'm reading
You
y'all
didn't.
papers.
You
Right.
ain't
While
do
I'm
that.
reading y'all papers and grading y'all papers, y'all gonna sit here and watch me. How
No,
about that?
you didn't. No, you
I did.
didn't.
I
Oh God.
did.
But I'm
I
the petty one. We all know now who's the
did.
real petty one. That is real petty.
Oh, they made me
Ooh,
so mad when they did that. I was like,
them
and then
folks.
they gonna say we were gonna leave you a note. Then I went in there and it wasn't even no note. I said, so where was this note? Y'all were gonna leave me. You didn't even leave me a note. So anyway, that was. But like you said, it's the end of the like they literally have 2 weeks of class left. So I get it. They grown, right? But I was just like, excuse me.
Right. They're like, They're like, man, we grown. We have graduated already in our minds. And we're the smart kids. We're the nerds. No, ma'am. We don't have this type of time.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Right. So, because I mean, to be fair, like if they was leaving, I was leaving. So I was okay with it. But it was just hilarious that I was just like, so y'all just gonna walk y'all happy tail right on out of here. Okay.
Like, oh, we'll catch you tomorrow or on
Right.
Friday. We'll catch you on Friday when we have more time. We don't have it right now.
Exactly. So with that being said, you guys, let's get into the things. Hey, everybody coming in. If you're catching this in the replay or you're catching this on where you get your podcast from, hey, come on in. And like El Teddy said, we're gonna introduce maybe a term to you guys today that might be new, something you're not familiar with. Micro schools. Okay, so we're gonna dig a little bit into that, and then of course, Florida. Florida,
One of
Florida.
those Florida
Florida.
articles, we don't have to do because it's contained into the other one.
Okay. All right. No problem. No problem. I mean, and again, we can just do the 3 articles a day so you can get off and get back to the things that you need to get done this afternoon as well. So let's get ready to jump into it. Do you want to end with micro schools and start with Florida, or do you
Yeah,
how do
let's
you
start
do
with Florida and end with micro
it?
schools.
Okay, because it's
And this,
always Florida. It's
I
always
think the one that contains everything is the one out of Jacksonville. I think there was one that had like a Jacksonville. It was the second. I know it was the second one I sent you. Let me tell you what it
okay.
says.
I'm sorry. Just opened up my email and there was something right on time.
Yeah, the one from News 4 Jacks.
Wait a minute. Okay. Give me a second.
Hey, everybody in the chat. Lemon Kush Pepper, Bilo, DD, CK, Emily, Ravine, Leela. Hey, everybody. Because Leela said, hello. Hey, really be TV. And that was it. Hello to you too,
Sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm
Leela.
sorry. Sorry. I hate when
Hey, Shakira.
Shakira. I don't know why I always want to do that when I hear Shakira. But anyway. All right. So the first one you said the one out of Jackson.
Out of Jacksonville. It says News 4 Jacks.
Got it. Okay. That's the one we want to pull up first. Okay. Governor DeSantis says he plans to sign sweeping education bill package. That's the one.
Yes.
All right. Let's get
Because
into it, you
the
guys.
first article, it talks about a component of the education package.
Got you. So this one gives us the whole kit and caboodle. All right. Mama say, mama saw, mama goose. All right, let's get into it. The article, the link is in the chat, and the article is coming out of, like El Teddy said, it is coming out of News 4 Jacks. It is dated April the 15th. All right, and it was last updated at 12 something yesterday. So 12:46 p.m. Okay. Let's get into the things, child. Governor DeSantis, I just can't. Anyway. Governor Ron DeSantis on Monday morning said he plans to sign a host of new education-related laws that will limit book challenges and simplify the process to convert failed turnaround schools into charter schools. We have already told you guys the buzzword around the charter school phenomenon, but we'll keep going for now. DeSantis highlighted parts of his HB 1285 during a news conference at a charter school in the Florida Panhandle. The bill also institutes Purple Star school districts, which recognize districts with Purple Star schools that make up 75% of their district. The purpose of the Purple Star School of Distinction designation is to recognize schools that support the unique needs of military families, help military connected students navigate critical challenges, and provide resources for military connected students when transitioning to a new school environment. In part, HB 1285 does the following. 1. It provides a clear and concise process for a struggling school to convert into a charter school. If a school receives consecutive low performance evaluations, it is deemed a turnaround school. If the district's plan to turn the school around does not succeed, the pathway for the school to find new direction and leadership should be simple and efficient. These changes will eliminate lengthy and drawn-out negotiations between the incoming charter and the school district to ensure no student is trapped at a failing school in Florida. A charter school must give preference to kids in the previous school zone and must serve the same grade levels as the previous school. The charter school cannot be charged rent for the facility, and the school district cannot charge an administrative fee. There is so much wrong with that, but let me keep reading. 2, it ensures the book challenges are limited for individuals who do not have children with access to the school district's material. Unlimited objections remain for parents with children in the school district, which includes homeschool students accessing district materials. Individuals without children in the district will be limited to 1 objection per month. Protect schools from activists trying to politicize and disrupt a school's book review process. We've gone over that book review process, but we will refresh you guys' memory. But let's finish reading through it. 3, continues to support military families with the Purple Star School of Distinction program. Institutes Purple Star school districts, which recognize districts with Purple Star schools making up 75% of schools in their district. Helps to ensure a seamless transition for military families moving into Florida by requiring that schools provide them with support and resources. DeSantis said there will be more education announcements on Tuesday. DeSantis said he has yet to receive the bill from the legislature, but added he plans to sign it when he does. So I'm going to, can I say something real quick?
You go, please be my guest.
All right, I'm gonna do the charter last. I'm gonna start with I've never lived in Florida, and so I don't understand the urgency of the Purple Star of Distinction for military families, but I'm not going to sit here and say that students who move from because we know that transition into new schools, the Army can make you move at a moment's notice. Maybe there's a bigger need because there is a large military base presence in Florida.
Right. That's what happens. Yeah, that it's like that for Florida. A lot of places that have larger military bases, like I know there's a school right next to Fort Hood over in Killeen, Texas, that is like 100, almost 100%, military kids. I think the largest naval base is in Jacksonville. It's either them or Norfolk, but they have the 2 largest naval bases in the country, and they have schools in and around there. And there's a huge Air Force base in the Panhandle. So there are several. There's in the Melbourne area. We have several areas where there's a large military presence. So there's schools in and around that particular base where pretty much all of the students kind of feed into that. So I think that's where
that one I don't. That one I don't think I really have. Because I just don't trust Ron DeSantis. I feel there's something in it that I shouldn't like, but on its surface, I just can't. I don't have an objection. The book review piece is what we've talked to you guys before about this law that was passed that basically is the equivalent of book banning, where it really varies from district to district on how they've interpreted that. The book list, what's banned, what's not banned, what the teacher knows, what the teacher does not know. I do find it interesting that they're saying that you're limited to the amount of challenges. It says this, and I understand them limiting people who don't have students in the school. I can kind of see that, even though community members are stakeholders in public schools, they are taxpayers and they have a say. But okay, fine. But the first part of that where it says unlimited objections remain for parents with children in the school district, which includes homeschool students accessing district materials. So we've talked about the book banning situation. And the problem is that objection goes both ways. So just like I can object to a book being on the list, the same thing could be said about somebody who wants a book off the list. So I just feel like that's going to continue to be an ongoing battle. I don't know. I believe that the ACLU has filed a lawsuit as it relates to that is moving its way through the courts. But we know that the courts are stacked, and again, El Teddy will dig deeper at some point, I'm sure. It's the charter school situation that that is the red flag for me. Um, because here's what's crazy about the way this is written. So what it says is that if your school is seen to be a failing school, right? The school is a failing school. So first, it has to be a failing school for consecutive years. Then it has to be deemed a transitioning school where it gets a few more years to fix itself. Then once it doesn't do that, then it can basically transition into a charter school without a whole lot of pushback, without going through the process of it going through the school board and having to be voted on and all of that. What I found interesting, El Teddy, is that they're eliminating that whole due process of it. But I also found it interesting that the charter schools will not have to pay any rent, and the charter schools will not be charged any sort of administrative fee. So what that translates to the day-to-day conversation is, once again, my taxpayer dollars. Let's just assume I have a child in Florida schools. So now I'm not only supporting the public school system, now I'm supporting the charter school system. And my other question is, what is this charter school that you're bringing in? What is it that charter school has that your public school system could not provide those students in the 4 to 5 years that it was deemed a failing / transitioning school? Because once again, the message that's being sent is that charter schools are the great white hope that can swoop in, wave their magic Harry Potter wand, and fix everything that the bumbling, incapable public school system can't fix. It's just crazy to me. And I yield the floor.
I'm gonna start there with the charter school, because because I have some history on why they're doing this and how we got here. Some years ago, and this goes back to several governors ago, when school grades were instituted in Florida. That happened under Jeb Bush. That happened when Nickleby came in. His brother was president. He was the governor, and that happened. Once they started to collect data, Jeb Bush was president for 12 years. He served 3 terms. Once they started to get data on schools and grades started to stack up, there began to be schools that were labeled failing schools. There was a law that was put in place saying that, similar to what you have going on in Texas right now, that um the state could take over. Problem was, at the same time that they passed that law saying the state could take over, they also passed a class size amendment law where it became state law that elementary school, I think it was 20, 30, 35. So it was 20 for elementary, 30 in middle school, 35 in elementary school. I'm sorry, 25, 30, 35. That's what it was. And when they started to not be able to adhere to the class size amendment, that gave schools the out to explain away why they were not able to meet whatever school grade. And most of the schools that weren't able to meet the class size amendment were also failing schools, which were also in urban areas. So, and then you had the public had pushback, said, no, we don't want the state to take over the schools. So every time they got ready to do it and there was a school that fit the criteria, the public would push back, and the governors and the state would say, no, we may not want to do that. Fast forward now, they're trying to get around that and say, well, since y'all don't want us to take over, well, you know what? We just gonna make it a charter school. So we're not going to try what we tried before. We just going to turn it around and make it a charter school. And now the schools will do potentially could do further because we've talked about this really be you got people that may not be certified. You have less of the protocols and things in place to make sure that quality education is happening. And so now, whereas they're wording it like, oh, it's about to get better and things are going to be great, you could be throwing them from the pot to the fire. And that's what's going to happen in a lot of these situations. And let's be clear. Most charter schools are in Florida, I should say, are backed by major corporations or businesses that don't have anything to do with education, but jumped into the charter school game because they wanted to be able to make that money and get that free government money. All the while, they don't have all of the restrictions and red tape about are you meeting the standards that needs to be met that public schools have to meet. So it's going to be a whole S show. My biggest issue is with the book situation because they're not putting all the language in there. Part of the language with that, with the whole thing with the books is they already have a list, right? Already have a very exhaustive list. They're trying to make it where you can't get anything removed from that list. They're putting teeth into this where because there have been challenges. The Division of English Language Arts, the statewide division of Council of English Language Arts, has put in several what's the word I'm looking for? Challenges to that, so that they could reassess books that are on the list that have traditionally been approved, and they're unyielding and unbending on it. And this started by people, even though the law now says, oh, if you don't have a child in the school, you can't go and raise a stink about it. But it's too late now because all of those people have already gotten what they wanted. You see what I'm saying? They already got all of the books that they wanted off the list. So now you say, oh, well, you can't come back. But the toothpaste is already out of the tube. So what DeSantis is trying to do is he's trying to codify this book ban. That's what this is an attempt to do. This book ban is being codified with this law, where if you try to take books off, it would be next to impossible. But putting it on doesn't have the same level of restrictions in the red tape that goes through the DOE in Florida. So that's what this is about. They're codifying the book law because he knows that the pendulum eventually is going to shift back. There is a groundswell of attention from Democrats in Florida, and they are getting some traction because Ron DeSantis is seen as such a polarizing. And I talked about this on my channel. Once he lost the primaries, he was he was tainted goods at that point, and he wasn't seen in the same light by Republicans as he was seen before because you took this big L. And so now they're like, yeah, bro. And then now you embarrassing us all over the place. Everybody looks at us like a laughing stock. We're not going to keep going for this. So there is some groundswell to have him ousted. However, he's trying to codify everything that he's put in place before he gets pushed out of office. That's what this is an attempt to do.
So maybe him running for president wasn't a horrible thing.
Right. Right.
All right. Okay. Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, don't get me wrong. I definitely feel like the book piece of it is definitely a sense of urgency. But you took the book piece, not took the charter school piece. I think we balanced it out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You wanna stay in Florida before we get into this micro school situation?
No, I thought we had one.
Oh, wait a minute, hold on. The problems facing students at public
Yes,
K
the
through 12.
survey
Okay,
one.
my bad. Okay. The Pew Research Center. Ooh, it's a Pew article. Okay. Hey, everybody coming in. Welcome. Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. All right. Oh, I think El Teddy got a call. So we're going to go ahead and just read. He read the article already. So we're going to read the article. Problems facing students. Problems students are facing in K through 12 schools. So let me read you guys. Now, you know, it's a Pew article, so there's a lot of data here. I'm not going to read all of the data. As a matter of fact, I'm going to share the article so you can see some of the charts as we go through the article. But please make sure you go and you read it for yourself because there is a lot of data. You know, Pew is all about the research. So I'm going to let you guys just sort of see. They have pie charts and line charts and all kinds of charts. All right, let's read it. Let's get it. 3 problems that students are facing in public K through 12 schools. We asked teachers about how students are doing at their school. Overall, many teachers hold negative views about students' academic performance and behavior. You can count this teacher in with that one. 48% say the academic performance of most students at their school is fair to poor. A third say it's good, and only 17% say it's excellent or very good. 49% say students' behavior at their school is fair to poor. 33% say it's good, and 13% rate it as excellent or very good. Teachers in elementary, middle, and high schools give similar answers when asked about students' academic performance. But when it comes to students' behavior, elementary and middle school teachers are more likely than high school teachers to say it's fair or poor, 51% and 54% respectively versus 43%. Teachers from high poverty schools are more likely than those in medium and low poverty schools to say the academic performance and behavior of most students at their school is fair to poor. The differences between high and low poverty schools are particularly striking. Most teachers from high poverty schools say the academic performance and behavior, 73% and 64% of most students in their school, are fair to poor. Much smaller shares of teachers from low poverty schools say the same, 27% for academic performance and 34% for behavior. In turn, teachers from low poverty schools are far more likely than those from high poverty schools to say the academic performance and behavior of most students at their school is excellent or very good. The lasting impact of COVID. Now, we've been telling y'all, we didn't have to go to Pew.
Right.
We've been telling y'all about the impact of COVID, but I'm going to read what Pew had to tell us anyway. Among those who have been teaching for at least a year, about 8 in 10 teachers say the lasting impact of the pandemic on students' behavior, academic performance, and emotional well-being has been very or somewhat negative. This concludes about a third or more saying that the lasting impact has been very negative in each area. Shares ranging from 11% to 15% of teachers say the pandemic has had no lasting impact on these aspects of students' lives, or that the impact has been neither positive nor negative. Only about 5% say the pandemic had a positive lasting impact on these things. A smaller majority of teachers, 55%, say the pandemic has had a negative impact on the way parents interact with teachers, and 18% saying its lasting impact has been very negative. These results are mostly consistent across teachers of different grade levels and school poverty levels. Major problems at school. When asked teachers about a range of problems that may affect students who attend their school, the following issues top the list. 1, poverty. 53% say it's a major problem at their school. 2, chronic absenteeism. That is students missing a substantial number of school days. And 3, anxiety and depression. 1 in 5 say bullying is a major problem among students at their school. Smaller shares of teachers point to drug use, school fights, and alcohol use in gangs. Differences by school levels. Similar shares of teachers across grade levels say poverty is a major problem at their school, but other problems are more common in middle or high schools. 61% of high school teachers say chronic absenteeism is a major problem, as compared to 43% of elementary school teachers and 46% of middle school. 69% of high school teachers and 57% of middle school teachers say anxiety and depression are major problems, compared with 29% of elementary school teachers. 34% of middle school teachers say bullying is a major problem, compared with 13% of elementary school teachers and 21% of high school teachers. Not surprisingly, drug use, school fights, alcohol use, and gangs are more likely to be viewed as a major problem by secondary school teachers than those teaching in elementary schools. Differences by poverty level. Teachers' views on problems students face at their school also vary by school poverty level. Majority of teachers in high school and medium poverty schools say chronic absenteeism is a major problem where they teach, 66% and 58% respectively. A much smaller share of teachers in low poverty schools says this is 34%. Bullying, school fights, and gangs are viewed as a major problem by larger shares of teachers at high poverty schools than in medium or low poverty schools. When it comes to anxiety and depression, a slightly larger share of teachers in high poverty schools, 51%, than in high poverty schools, 44%, say these are major problems. Sorry, low poverty versus high poverty are major problems among students where they teach. Okay, well, I'm sorry. Okay. Discipline practices. About 2/3 of teachers, 66%, say that the current discipline practices at their school are very or somewhat mild, including 27% who say they are very mild. Only 2% say the discipline practices at their school are very or somewhat harsh, while 31% say they are neither harsh nor mild. We also asked teachers about the amount of influence different groups have when it comes to determining discipline practices at their school. 67% say teachers themselves don't have enough influence. Very few say teachers have too much influence, only 2%. And 29% say their influence is about right. 31% of teachers say school administrators don't have enough influence. 22% say they have too much. And 45% say the influence is about right. On balance, teachers are more likely to say parents, their state government, and the local school board have too much influence rather than not enough in determining discipline practices at their schools. Still, substantial shares say these groups have about the right amount of influence. Teachers from low to medium poverty schools are more likely than those in high poverty schools to say parents have too much influence over discipline practices. In turn, teachers from high poverty schools are more likely than those from low to medium poverty schools to say that parents don't have enough influence. Again, this is a Pew article, so it is very lengthy, but we're going to stop there with the top 3, and we're going to discuss it from there. Again, please, you guys, click the link and read through it. It's a lot of data, a lot of data. I have so much of an observation, but go ahead, El Teddy.
I'll let you go. You can start.
So, first of all, I'm going to say that I agree with pretty much what the article is saying. That is my experience. The only thing I'm going to say is, and so what I'm getting ready to say is going to probably come off very harsh. This is my experience with what I'm seeing. The first part I'm going to say is it's nothing new that poverty levels have a direct connection with what goes on at the school for a variety of reasons that we don't have the time to dig into today. Just know that poverty levels of a school, what side of the city that the school belongs in, and all of that does have an effect. I have noticed that absenteeism is a lot higher post-pandemic. We have a lot of parents who are homeschooling their kids, but are not following the proper protocol to let the school know that they're homeschooling their kids. And so we literally just have kids sitting on our roll that we can't find. I have a situation right now with a student who told me that Christmas she wasn't coming back after Christmas, that her parents were going to homeschool her. She has not been back after Christmas, yet we cannot find her to get her parents to do the proper paperwork to withdraw her from school. So she literally is sitting on my roll as she's been absent since December. Um, I know that schools across the nation have literally lost kids. I mean, there's no other way I can put it. They have lost kids. We actually talked about that in an article. I think last year we talked about out of Seattle.
Mhm.
We did talk about that. So, but I want to focus on this mental health piece. And this is the part that's going to be harsh. This is really be talking for once. This is really be not El Teddy. Don't take it out on him. If you have an issue or concern, you can take it out on me, and that's fine. While I accept that mental health exists, and while I also accept that mental health has gone largely diagnosed or not taken seriously enough among our kids, I am going to say that I think post-pandemic, we are allowing mental health to be used as a crutch. I know, for example, my school district has factored in mental health days for kids. Yet there's been no conversation on what that looks like. There's been no conversation on what that even means. For the kids, that just means that they get a free day to just not come to school. And let's be clear, sometimes that's what you need. I mean, adults need it. Sometimes we as adults take mental health days. Like we get that. But I think that we have been throwing around anxiety, the word anxiety and the word depression without really letting kids understand what that really truly means. And so, yes, it's become one of the top 3 issues because it is a buzzword that has been used since the pandemic. Did our kids suffer through the pandemic? Was there a lot of anxiety involved? Did the kids, were they stuck in the house or stuck at home? Like, I get all of that. But I think there was no formal decompression for our students coming out of the pandemic. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not saying that these things don't exist. I'm saying that I think the schools and the home environment has not done a good job of identifying what that looks like and helping our kids decompress out of it. Because I just know it's been my experience that we're seeing a lot more kids that are dealing with these things. Do you understand what I'm trying to say, Otedi? I don't want to.
No.
I don't
I
want to
understand
disregard
totally.
that there's a. I don't want anybody to think that I'm disregarding that there are legitimate mental health issues that our kids deal with. But I think that is being used as a crutch, which is why we see it as a top 3 issue post COVID. All right, I'm done. Go ahead, Otedi.
One thing I do want to say is that me echoing?
I don't hear echo, so it might be you. I don't hear echo.
Okay.
Do you want me to mute? I don't hear echo.
No. You're fine.
Okay.
It just may be my computer. I think that this survey was what it shows me is it was very thorough. They didn't just go and just say, I'm gonna go to this one, well-to-do area like they do for a lot of surveys, and I'm just going to go where the students are beautiful, or there was an agenda to say schools are doing extra good or schools are doing extra bad. They went and they did the research and they let the research go out there. Because if you ask professional educators around the country, most of them will share the sentiments that you see reflected in this survey. It absolutely looks real and true. I do think that the behavior situation is not, COVID didn't start that, and COVID is not the reason for that. That's been happening. There have been some changes in classroom management and disciplinary protocols and structures within schools that have changed even pre-COVID. I remember, and you maybe remember too, really be maybe about seven or 8 years ago, there was this big push for There was this big push to have people, schools not suspend students. You couldn't suspend a student anymore, and when you wrote a referral, they started to come up with just out of, just extraordinary hoops you had to jump through in order to have a student suspended for 3 days. And then they started to come up with these, I forgot what that's called, but what they termed them. But instead of suspending them, they would send them to this alternate location, sometimes within the school, and it wasn't indoor suspension, but
Mhm.
it wasn't outdoor suspension, because what the student did was enough to be outdoor suspension, but they didn't want the student not to be in school. And so it started from there, and it started, so there was this uh, um uh, it was strategically done, where there was this lessening of disciplinary actions. And I'm not saying everything is about suspend a kid, suspend a kid, suspend a kid, but there are some things that you should be out of here for, that they've stopped putting kids out of here for. um and so much so, everything at the school became student centered. And I know that sounds bad by me saying there's a problem with school only being student centered. It sounds like it's bad that I say that, but the problem is, when you say it's all student centered, you never take into account that there are employees, there's staff, there's faculty there who have, in order for them to be able to educate those students, they have to have a certain level of comfort. They have to have a certain level of, a standard of professionalism, that they know that when they go to work, they can be supported if things go downhill or if something's wrong. And that has pretty much gone away in a lot of school districts. There's no support a lot of times from administration. It's whatever that student says, that's what it is. It could be wrong. There was the taking away of a lot of the support for the professional educators and the faculty and the staff. And we know, really, be over the years, the parents have no support of the teachers at all. So we surely can't look to the teachers, I mean, to the parents, to have any support or backing for those teachers. But consequently, that dissolved and went away from the administration and the school districts as well. So what you have here is a whole workforce of people who are tired. They are tired.
So I agree with you 100,000%. That's not even a real number. But I agree with you because, again, and I've talked to El Teddy about this offline. I actually want to work on us writing a book that talks about all of the things that are no longer available to teachers as it relates to maintaining discipline. And I agree with you. There are certain things that have become bad words, right? Discipline has become a bad word. And I think part of the problem is that we as a society, and again, I'm about to make y'all mad when I say this, y'all about to be mad at me, but we as a society have started looking at school as a babysitter, as a place that our children have a right to go to no matter what, instead of it being a service. And so, what I mean by that is, if your child cannot follow the rules, there is a consequence. And the consequence falls on you as a parent. For example, if your child breaks the rule and the punishment is suspension, that's a you problem now. But the problem is, we as a society have shifted our thought process into, well, what about the parents who work? Not my problem. That's not my problem. And I know that's going to make some of y'all mad, and it sounds very harsh, but here's the reality. I cannot sacrifice 29 other kids at the expense of your one. So if your child doesn't know how to come to school and follow the rules, then the consequence is they can't be here until they do. So if that means they have to go home, they got to go home. And guess what? That falls on you to figure out how you're going to watch them. You're going to have to take off work. You're going to have to take them to grandma's house. See, when we were out of school and my parents had to go to work, we went to grandma's house for the day. And the reality is, school is not a babysitter. It is a place where your children are trying to learn. And like El Teddy said, there are people there who are working. So when you get rid of in-school suspension, when you get rid of after-school detention, when you get rid of out-of-school detention or suspension, excuse me, what is there left? There's nothing left. There's absolutely nothing left. And now we're in a situation where schools damn near can't do anything with kids short of a physical altercation or drugs.
And even in those cases, I know a lot of school districts now, especially in Florida, Georgia, and Texas, where even if there is a physical altercation, they're not suspending them unless maybe you see blood or a bone protruding out of a body. They've essentially eliminated that. I think the other aspect that falls right in line with the discipline aspect is the other thing that the survey talked about, which is that these kids aren't on grade level, that these kids are not being educated, that they aren't learning, and they're not being appropriately prepared to either enter the workforce or enter college. And that comes from the discipline aspect, because that's a part of teaching a child or a soon to be adult at the certain level of decorum. There's certain expectations that there are of you, in terms of how you behave and present yourself at your workplace. And then there's a certain level of skill sets, just the ability to read and cognitively understand and interpret what's going on. And what we're starting to see now, we're starting to see that first generation and crop of students that have entered the workforce that have fell victim to this. And I can tell you how we see it. How many times in the last 2 to 3 years have you started hearing these buzzwords about places that are quote unquote toxic work environments? And that's not to negate that there truly are some places that are toxic work environments. And I'm not talking about some of those egregious places like Tesla and stuff like that, but some of these places where somebody said, I need this done by 5 o'clock today, and you're so used to being in school that they're gonna always extend the give you an extension on the deadline, and the old boss saying, baby, if you don't have it by 5 o'clock today, you're out of here. And now that's seen as being a toxic work environment. And now, because you have had a group of a generation of people who've never been taught that they have to have deadlines, who've never been said, no, you won't get, I don't have any understanding for you. No, I'm not going to pacify you. No, I'm not going to give you an extension. No, there aren't any accommodations. It is what it is. And when you approach them that way, because they went through a whole 12 years of school not learning about those things, then now when they enter the workforce, they can't handle themselves. And there are rolling consequences to the rest of society.
And again, it goes back to there being a consequence. There is no consequence anymore. So if the paper is due on Friday by close of business, midnight, whatever the date is, and I go to check and I see that paper is not done, I, as the teacher, what's the word I want to say, El Teddy? Forget it. We're not here to be politically correct. I, as a teacher, I'm not even allowed to give that child a 0. Because you know what's going to happen? The child is going to complain. They're going to go to their parent, or they're going to go to an administrator, and the administrator is going to come back to me and say, well, can you give them a little extra time? Their mom said that their pen broke. Well, can you give them a little extra time? They were at their dad's house and they left their computer at their mom's house. Well, can you give them a little extra time? Nevertheless, that they had 2 months to get it done. Nevertheless, that I gave them whatever they needed. They knew what the due date was. It doesn't even matter if I've already extended it. They're going to find a way to once again ask me to extend it. I told you that my county asked us to give kids amnesty days at the end of the quarter. Oh, give them an amnesty day so they can turn in anything that they were missing. So let's just use third quarter as an example. Third quarter starts after Thanksgiving. It's not over till the end of January. So you want me to go back to next year? Literally. I mean, last year. You literally want me to go back to last year and let them turn work in that was already due. And so at the end of the day, like El Teddy said, and when you get into your workforce, you don't have those skills that says, hey, when my boss says I need to get something done, it's not a suggestion. It is not, it's a directive. And the consequence for me not following the directive is that I'm going to get fired, or I'm going to be disciplined on my job. I'm going to be written up, or whatever the situation may be. And so what we're doing is we are raising a society of kids who have this entitlement that nothing has a consequence.
To answer your question, CK Emily, it's all about analytics. It's all about numbers. You have people at the district level who only look at numbers and they analyze everything, every facet of that school based on analytics. Much of that comes from there are a lot of transplants into education, people who have no educational pedagogy about them, people who haven't been in a classroom, that are sitting at the district levels, sitting on school boards, and are making decisions for schools based on a number and an analytic, which isn't practical in a lot of cases in education, because I can't look at these students as just a number, because they think of students as commodities. It's all about money, and it's all about the money and the analytics. And what they're looking at is, as long as I got the right numbers and I can insert the right amount of money, I can do that. So what, to answer your question, CK Emily, they started to change. That's how they started to change all of the rules. That's how they started to say, nope, we don't want that child out of school, we want them in school. No, you can't do this. No, you can't send them home. They have parents that come to these school board meetings, and some of them don't even have kids in school. Some of them have agendas as to why they want something done. And what happens is the educators have been a lot, in a lot of cases, removed from those decision making processes, and they go strictly by what somebody outside of the school, outside of a classroom, outside of education pedagogy tells them should happen. And then they make wholesale laws and decisions based on that. That's how we got to these book bans and all kinds of other stuff. That's how we got to the explosion of charter schools and a whole lot of other things. That's what's happening here.
And the other thing, I'm gonna piggyback on that as well. The question was, why are school administrators, school administrations, excuse me, relaxing the consequences for missed homework? So here's the other side that I'm going to assume, CK, that you're not one of these parents, right? So here's the flip side for parents who do hold their kids accountable, for parents who do put a consequence in place for their child. Unfortunately, you don't see the parents that don't. You don't see the parents that go to the school board and complain about the principal and complain about the teacher that actually wants to hold their child accountable. You don't see that the school board then comes back to that principal and says, "Oh, give that kid another chance, or let that kid turn it in late." Why? Because nobody wants to deal with the squeaky wheel. You know how they say the squeaky wheel gets the oil? Well, nowadays nobody wants to deal with the squeaky wheel. They're like, "Listen, we don't want to deal with this parent. Just get that child an extra week to do the work." So again, unfortunately for you and for your kids, because you're holding your child accountable and you're making your child follow the rules, those other parents are not, and they're doing everything except for holding their child accountable. They're going to everybody to find the excuse. They're going to everybody else to find the shortcut rather than the consequence. And so unfortunately, the trickle down is, well, now nobody's going to be held accountable. And part of that I blame on this litigious society that we're in, where everybody thinks that everything's a lawsuit. Everybody thinks everything is a lawsuit. Well, everything is not a lawsuit, especially if I'm following the rules that you agree. So short, I'm gonna tell you, I know we still have this last article to get to. Short story, I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna move forward, but we can always revisit this conversation. My school policy, this is pre-pandemic, so the policy was more strictly enforced. My school policy, oh, you're not a parent? Oh, okay. My school policy is no cell phones. The kids are not supposed to have their cell phones out in class. Now, granted, post-pandemic, that's another conversation, but pre-pandemic, it was more enforced. I was definitely one of those teachers that enforced it, right? A parent called a student during my class. Well, now you've put the child in a position to do what? It's my mom on the phone, but I know that my teacher don't play, right? So the student, he said, this is my mom. Can I answer the phone? I said, can I speak to her, please? Well, he answered the phone. He says whatever she needs to say. And he said, hold on, my teacher wants to talk to you. So he hands me the phone, and the parent hangs up because she don't want to talk to me. She talked to her child. She said what she had to say. I'm going to make a long story short because there are a couple of other layers to it. Long story short, an administrator got involved. An administrator supported me, had my back on the whole phone thing. The parent gets upset. The parent says, well, I called him because he hurt his leg at the football game on Saturday, and I was just making sure his leg felt good. That literally could have been a text message. You literally did not need to call him in the middle of class to ask him how his leg felt, but whatever. So the parent emails me and says, do not. Right. So the parent emails me. Once the administrator addresses the issue, the parent then emails me and says, questions me, and then says, and do not email me back. I want you to call me. Well, by the time I got the email, it was after school hours. And I actually was in a meeting with my principal when I got the email. My principal was like, don't call her. Respond to her email and keep it moving. It's after school hours. You're not obligated to call her, and you didn't do anything wrong. So, of course, I get to school the next day. Literally, I'm not exaggerating, you guys. I'm not exaggerating. Literally, and the time it took me to leave work that evening, which I did respond to her email at, let's say it was 4:00 that afternoon. By the time I got back to work at 7:50 the next morning, that parent had emailed everybody. And when I say everybody, I mean everybody, all the way up to the superintendent as it relates to this situation. I know y'all think it's a long story, but it's longer than what I'm telling you. Long story short, my principal's boss actually had a meeting with the parent, with my principal, about the situation. Now, thankfully for me, my principal and my principal's boss had my back, right? Again, pre-pandemic, they had my back because they were like, you violated the school policy that you signed off on because you called your child in the middle of class. But the point is, this is what we deal with. And so a lot of school board members, administrators, and everybody else, they don't have time to be dealing with a teacher, with a parent who's mad that I dare have an issue with her calling her child in the middle of my class over his leg hurting. I've had parents call their kids and ask them what they want for dinner. I've had parents call to ask their kids did they get to school okay? Like, all of that is a text message, people. But anyway.
The problem is really they will spend more time, effort, and energy to be allowed to do the wrong thing than just doing the right thing the whole time.
Absolutely.
They will go to the lengths of the earth, spend all of the time, effort, and energy to be able to do the wrong thing and to have the ability to do the wrong thing instead of just doing the right thing from the beginning.
Right. And you're right. Not all principals have their teachers' backs. In that case, like I said, I was very supported, and I don't have any complaint about how my principal and even my principal's boss handled it. But again, you're right. It could have easily gone in the opposite direction. All right, let's get into this last article. And again, just like we do around here, this is an introduction. I am sure that we will speak on micro schools more in depth on different levels.
And the reason that I wanted us to do this is because I have been seeing a lot of legislation on micro schools. And before we start to put it out there, we needed to unpack what it is so that when you start to hear us, have these have content about micro schools, you know exactly what it is that we're talking about.
Exactly, Yana. And I get it. We live in a different world. Like, I was a latchkey kid with no cell phone, but I get it. We're in a different world. I have no problem with parents who want to make sure their kids are good. But again, that can be a text message. You can have your kids' location on. They're at school. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really need to call. You could just turn on their location and you know where they are. But anyway, I don't want to. Oh, while we're speaking of discipline, I just dropped a link in the chat for the article. Did you see that video of that student that slapped that teacher? Not once.
I did. And please be clear, I would not have a job. Let's be
Listen,
clear.
not only wait a minute, hold on. Not only would I not have a job, but y'all be having to GoFundMe to raise my bail
Yes, because the
because
way I
I
would
would
have
have
gotten
blacked
out of
out.
my chair and begin to beat him with said chair, I'm just telling you how this would have
I would
went.
have blacked out. I'm just telling y'all the
I'm
truth.
just
I
telling you,
would
I
have
would have picked up
blacked
my
out.
chair and baby, it would have been on and popping. I'm just telling you.
I just need you to know that I would have blacked out.
Let me tell you something.
Okay. And the fact that them kids sat in that class and didn't go get anybody, nothing. They just sat there and watched that boy slap that teacher not once but twice, and then asked her if she wanted it again.
I thought it was a dude. It wasn't a no, I'm sorry. It was a non-binary trans
Yeah, it was
teacher.
a
That's
non.
what it was. It
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
non-binary
Which is
teacher. I
part of
forgot.
why I feel like that student felt like they could do like that's another listen. That could be a whole nother conversation. But yeah, Yana said she would have contributed to the defense fund. Yeah, I mean, I just ooh. Anyway, let's get into this micro school, baby, because I could. Ooh, that could be a whole nother. Baby, when I saw that, I tell you, I feel
Yeah.
like I was stuck. I think I was
Listen.
stuck for a minute.
I kind of blacked out after I watched it because I was imagining what I would be doing to
And
said.
imagine if this non-binary person, who I think was born a man at birth, but imagine if that non-binary person had got up and wailed on that boy. You know what the headlines would have been, right? You know what the headlines would
Oh,
have
I
been.
know. Oh, I
Yeah.
know. Well, well.
All right, you guys. So this article is coming from The Hill. It is dated April the 6th of 2024. And the title is called "The U.S. is Experiencing a Boom in Micro Schools. What are they?" Let's get into it. Micro schools have experienced a boom in popularity since the onset of the COVID pandemic. The tiny schools, which have a median student body size of 16, have been described as a modern reinvention of one-room schoolhouses where children of varying ages receive personalized instruction from a teacher in the same room. Supporters view this as liberating. Skeptics, however, worry over the educational quality. It's unclear how many micro schools existed in the United States prior to 2020, or just how many more opened during the early days of the pandemic, given that most took the form of informal learning pods, according to National Microschooling Center CEO Dan Sofer. I might have to look into this microschooling center. We might have to do some research on this center, LT. But the number definitely jumped during 21-22 academic year. Now about 1.5 million children, them the children we can't find, attend one of the country's roughly 95,000 micro schools, according to SOFR, roughly the same number that study at Catholic schools. Advocates for micro schools say they offer some students, especially those who are gifted or have learning disabilities, a greater chance to thrive academically and socially than traditional schools do. At Spinks Academy, a micro school based in Lexington, Kentucky, almost all 24 students are twice exceptional, meaning they are gifted in one academic area but have one or more learning disabilities like ADHD or dyslexia, according to the school's director, Jennifer Lincoln. There's gifted education and there's special education, which El Teddy explained last week, but there are not a lot of resources for students with an overlap in the two. I disagree, but we'll keep going. The tiny classroom size and personal instruction at Spinks allows students with different levels of mastery in different subjects to receive the attention they need, she says. Micro schools can offer some kids dealing with physical or mental health issues an easier way to study than traditional schools. 16-year-old Layla Robinson, for instance, was homeschooled during grade school and later on during the pandemic because of a health condition before entering Spinks. I got to the point where I wanted to go back to school, but I thought big schools would overwhelm me, Robertson told The Hill. It wasn't an environment that I felt like I could be calm and get my work done in. Robertson eventually decided to attend Spinks because of its small size. Micro schools can also appeal to kids who feel like they just don't fit in other schools. This was the case for 15-year-old Madeline Mission, who struggled to fit in at her private religious school in Lexington during the pandemic. She quickly realized the Spinks Academy was a place where she wanted to attend after shadowing a student for a day. I'm queer, and I saw a lot of other queer students, and I thought, oh wow, they're open and accepting here. Spinks Academy is a nationally accredited and Kentucky certified school, but in this regard, it's an exception in the microschooling world. Ah, there's the hook. Okay. There's no single regulatory body monitoring microschools, which experts fear means there's no quality backstops to ensure kids are receiving an adequate education. Most microschools are also not accredited. In a survey of 400 microschools across the country shared with The Hill from a National Microschooling Center, only 16% said they were accredited in their state. This is because many microschools operate as learning centers for homeschool students and therefore do not need any accreditation. Others function as private schools which do not need to be accredited nor have certified teachers in most states. The world of accreditation among private K through 12 schools in the United States is notoriously murky. There is no federal accreditation requirements for K through 12 schools where schools must meet standards for performance. What? Wait a minute, maybe I read that wrong. Hold on. The world of accreditation among private. Okay, I did read it wrong. Okay, private schools. Okay. At the state level, laws accrediting private schools vary. The accreditation is almost never legally required for private schools and is only required for public schools in about 20 states, according to the outlet. Florida, for example, a current hotbed for microschools, does not require, of course, Florida does not require K through 12 schools to be accredited, nor is accreditation or a lack thereof reported to the public. Nevada, another state with a growing microschool population, also does not require it. And both states, like most others, do not require private school teachers to have a teaching certificate. This lack of oversight and clarity in what coursework is offered at microschools in part echoes the concerns which drove the U.S. to eventually do away with from the one-room schoolhouse and adopt a more organized and unified school system, according to Jen Jennings, director of Princeton University's Education Research Section. As a result of that shift, states promise kids a certain level of education quality. So the concern with microschools and any form of state-funded education where there is no quality backstop is that we simply just don't know what kids are getting. Concerns over microschools' lack of accreditation most often come up in states with education savings accounts or voucher programs.
Here we
Ding,
go.
ding, ding,
Here
ding,
we
ding.
go.
Ding, 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 ding. Under those programs, the states set aside funds for students who opt out of public school system in favor of a private or charter school. Last year saw a surge in states adopting or expanding school voucher programs, including Florida, Iowa, Utah, and Oklahoma. The worry with a setup like that is folks are doing right by the students, that they are taking money on behalf of said Jennings. My issue with the micro schools is the same as my issue is with the charter schools.
It's just a smaller facsimile of the charter school.
That's all it
Listen,
is. That's all it is.
I told y'all how many years ago that they are trying to take us back to 19th century America with 20th century technology, 21st century technologies. Back in 19th century America in the 1800s and the early 1900s, and really be you are our historian, we didn't have public school systems for most municipalities, did we? And what you had that one teacher and one classroom, and it was that teacher's job to teach everybody in that class everything that was to be taught and that was going on. And essentially, that's what we have going on here.
So here's the thing. I take exception to a few things said in that article. The first thing I take exception to is when they said that there are not usually resources that identify students who are gifted but also have other disabilities. I take exception to that. I think, this is what it all boils down to for me. I've said it before and I'm going to keep saying it. Here's my big issue. You continuously take money out of the public school system instead of fixing the public school system. Here's the thing I don't have a problem with. I don't have a problem with a a philanthropist saying, I want to start a school. Do your thug thizzle as long as you are not taking taxpayers' money to do it. The problem I have is that they are constantly taking taxpayers' money and pulling resources away from the public school system and then saying, but the public school system is broken. Well, I guess it is broken if you keep pulling resources away instead of fixing it. That makes absolutely no sense to me. So I'm and El Teddy knows, because I'm not going to say the student's name, but this is one of my favorite. El Teddy knows I love this young man. He's a young man
She
now.
do. She do.
I have taught him every year. He's a junior now. I've taught him 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade. He is autistic, but he is also ADHD. Okay. And I love him. Okay.
She do.
And
That's her little son. That is her little son. I'm trying to tell you, that is her child.
I love him. His parents love me, and we is good. And there are literally times when he will get up and walk around my classroom. I know he's paying attention. I know he just needs to move. I know he just needs to do things. And he reads the same 5 posters that I have more than 5 posters, but for whatever reason, he likes these same 5 posters that I hang up in my room over and over and over again. Sometimes he is working on his great novel. He has written a musical. He has started a YouTube channel. Like, he has done all of these things, right? But he is one of the smartest students that I have. I do think that schools can put the resources in place with our gifted kids who also have disabilities in other areas, because it is more common than we think. And it is more common than we give it credit for, right? And so why not say, for a student like him, why not say we're going to put the resources in place to make sure that there is a place for him at the public school where he can get the education he needs? I don't care about anybody starting a school. Do it. I care that you keep taking money that should be allotted for the public school to do it. That's my issue.
And since, for me, my issue is because I know there's no going back from this. But my thing is that if you're going to do this, then what you have to do is you have to put there have to be some, I don't want to say restrictions, but you have to have something where there's, okay, a standard. There has to be some standards for these micro schools. If you're going to open one, because you're not going to stop at this point, there needs to be benchmarks. There needs to be accreditation standards. There needs to be some, guardrails for this.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's a free-for-all. And you could have, remember we read the story about the schools in Louisiana where they was just paying the money and they were giving high school diplomas away.
Right. They literally were buying diplomas, literally buying them.
And never had to go to school. So that's what you're going to have here. So there has to be some there has to be some guardrails put on this, because if not, it's going to be a free-for-all. And you're going to have places where there's no education taking place.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna we have to get ready to shut it down because El Teddy is late for Run Your Mouth. They're not gonna be talking about me over to the Run Your Mouth.
They already talking about
late.
you.
The teacher is late, so
they're gonna say it was my fault. But my point is, and before we get out of here, we will start to bring you all those
we're gonna definitely
articles,
because
they're, like I said, I just saw an article yesterday from Utah where they have they're putting money into micro schools now. And you know how these states are, they become copycat states, and once one person can get away with it, the other state feels like they can get away with it too. Really, the people want to know, are you gonna give me a little bit more real estate today to work with? Because you see how late we start, in an hour and 15 minutes she gonna be looking for me.
The people ain't said that. You said that. The people ain't said that. You said that.
I am the people. Why I can't be the people? I am the people.
Yes, because we're going to be talking about OJ tonight. We're going to be talking about the OJ.
Oh.
We're revisiting the OJ documentary. We're going to revisit. So yes, it's 7. If I push it back from 6:45 to 7:00, is that good?
That'll be enough time.
All right. Okay. All right, you guys. So head on over to El Teddy's house, and then you're gonna head on over to my house, and we're gonna talk about the things of the things.
Y'all give me about 5 minutes. I got to make a phone call, but I'll be ready in about 5 minutes.
Your intro take about 5 minutes. Just gonna start your intro.
You know what? Bye, y'all.